Well, what do we have here? We finally have the patch notes coming to the game tomorrow, as well as the balance adjustments just released. And this maintenance is happening on the 30th of July at 3 a.m. UTC minus 5 time, and also it's going to last for only 1 hour, which is very surprising for a big patch. And with this patch, I'm looking at it for the first time actually with you guys while recording this, so I don't really have any preemptive thoughts. I'm just going to be looking at it and kind of judging it at face value, just so you guys know. But first things first, we're going to be having this first character coming to the game, which we talked about in my previous video, Lilium. She is a new SSR LD character that looks pretty strong. I think there will be some counters out there that already exist. I have a few in mind, which I'll talk about later on this week when she actually releases. But she looks pretty cool. Looks like a very good answer to control and probably will be good in bruiser gameplay if you put her on Bloodbath. So very interesting. And we also have a new SR character. So this is an LD SR character. You can see she's Disorder, so she's also going to be Dark. And basically she's a support character who provides both AoE vulnerable, that's like the debuff on Dieting and Messiah's S1 I believe, and you also get speed buff for your team. So very good buffs. I think the reason why they gave vulnerable is because it stacks with defense down, so she's going to be very powerful as a support, especially for free-to-play players that need a good SR option. And there's not a lot of good characters that give speed buff that are SR units besides like Red Kazuyo. So the fact that she can do that and also give vulnerable is great. She's going to be very valuable. It really depends on her other skills as well, because I assume this is only going to be for S3 and S2. Maybe her S1 does something else as well. We'll have to see. But looks pretty cool. Also a waifu, and I think she'll be on the same banner as Lilium, so you'll be able to try to pull for both from the same banner. Also, there's going to be pretty big changes coming to gameplay. So the first one is that for shell farming, Grim Pursuit, after every 5 battle victories, you are guaranteed to receive 1 mythic quality shell. So they finally added a pity system for the shells. This makes it so that if you run 10 runs, you can't get only Dream Balls now. Great change. Honestly, I thought they would have done after every 10 battle victories, but they did 5, so that's great. And yeah, it just makes it so that you don't get screwed over by RNG as much. I don't think this will change too much, to be honest, because the chances you didn't get a mythic quality shell in 5 runs wasn't that high. It definitely did happen and was more common than you thought, but it's not going to really change too much, but it is a nice thing to have this like pity system for the shells. Also, you're going to see that Anasync Echoes is going to be expanded on for the people that cleared it, and the new Ember Check will have this new mechanic where you get Frostbite, and I don't really know what this will do, but basically you get Frost Mark, and then a snowstorm will sweep across the battlefield. So I don't know if it does damage or CCs you, but it'll be interesting to see. We also have the new RTA season, so that's great. Honestly, I hope that they implement an off-season period, maybe for like a week or 2 weeks, where you can actually play and not really worry about your ranking. That would be fun to test builds and stuff like that. Right now, we can't even play during the off-season, which makes no sense. So hopefully they do that for the next season. I know it was kind of like a beta season considering it was season 0, but hopefully they do it in the future. Big thing coming. Dedicated gear loadout system for Arena. You can create specialized competitive builds for your Animus based on team composition without affecting your regular PvE builds. So this basically means you can just save your defense team on a certain set of modules and shells, and you don't have to worry about them losing their gear when you're making your PvE teams. Great change. I kind of wish that they just made your PvE teams to have the same loadout like they said they would, but I think this is a step in the right direction. Hopefully they add more with sets, but I won't really count on it, to be honest, because I think they don't really want us to just have one gear set for everything. But I guess just having this gear set for your defense team is already a pretty good QOL change, so I am not complaining. Next, we have the balance adjustments, which we'll talk about, but there's some other things, bug fixes going on that they fixed. I'm not going to go over them really because there are a ton of things that they actually bug fixed, and a lot of them I weren't even aware of. So if you guys want to check that out, you can check it out on the website or the Discord. They actually talk about it. But basically, there's just a ton of bugs that were actually fixed that they did. Now after that, they have some other optimizations and adjustments. So basically, the one in blue is the big one. Your formations will actually save your shell and module equipment statuses. This doesn't mean that you can, just create teams on certain sets for every single dungeon and just keep them on. You'll still have to switch them around, but basically you can save the current team setup and equipment directly to the formation page. And if you just press that button, all of your equipment will equip to them, including modules and shells, so it'll be very, very good. They're adding display for initial turn meters. I think so this is so you don't have to click the buff button, which is great. They're improving continuous battle stability. I made a video on this actually where there was a huge bug with things turning off, so hopefully that's going to be fixed. They're also fixing a lot of the events, and the big one here is there's a new event, not a new event, but the Cage Rumble is coming back, and they are reducing the stage requirements so that everyone can get rewards, or most people can get rewards. And there's some other stuff that's being changed, which won't really matter too much. And let's now actually look at the balance changes, which I think a lot of people are interested in. And you're going to be surprised about some of the changes because I think, you know, I was surprised mostly when I just glanced over it very, very briefly because some of the changes are actually pretty good, but some of them don't really make sense. So let's actually look at the adjustments here. First, we're going to look at the animus adjustments or the characters. So Helkid's being changed. His base speed's going up, which is great. And his barrier is going up, which is great, which will increase the duration of immunity. This change is actually super, super good. And the reason why I think it is because Helkid isn't really good right now. And his main thing is his S3 shield because it gives you a fat shield, but it also gives you immunity while it's up for 3 turns. So by making him faster, he can actually be used more easily against control teams. In PvP, the most annoying team comps to fight, and honestly, in my opinion, the strongest, when they're drafted correctly, is control. Because they just lock you down and you can't actually take any turns. And if you actually look at Lilium's kit, the reason why she's immune to CC and turn meter pushback is because control is so strong right now. So this just kind of skyrockets Helkid from being not that great to honestly very good. And I think he's going to see a lot of play now because base speed is insanely like powerful to buff because your Swift Rush set bonuses, the like plus 45% and stuff like that, it all scales from your base speed. So because of this, you know, it's not just a 6 speed bonus, it's actually going to be more because if you're running him on Swift Rush, you're getting that extra 6 speed calculated now into your 45%, which is going to be great. So this is a great change. I think this will help people combat against control more. I might be biased because I struggle against control a lot, but you know, now we have another character that you can build that previously was not great, and now he's going to be a lot better. And honestly, for PvE, he's going to be a lot better too because he'll cycle faster and he has a fatter shield, which will make him a way better sustain character. Next up, we have Holden. So Holden's getting buffed. He's doing more damage now, has a higher chance of defense down, and he actually gets higher counter rate and higher final damage for the defense he has. So I don't know why he's getting buffed. Holden is already like one of the best characters in PvP. And in PvE, he's like decent enough where he doesn't really need a buff. So I'm not really sure why they're buffing him. He's going to be even stronger now, so Bruiser players rise up, I guess. But this is going to make him go from already like overpowered to just giga broken, in my opinion. So I don't really know about these changes. Like, I have my Holden built and I use him all the time in PvP. So I'm just very surprised that they buffed him here. I think this just makes him hands down the best Bruiser character to have. With these changes, I think he honestly is fine to pick now, even into Tiamat. Even before the buffs that are happening, he was okay into Tiamat, but now he's gonna be like still okay, but probably like just fine. Like, he probably will do well against her. I don't want to say he'll counter her because that doesn't make sense, but you're definitely gonna win a lot more with these changes, obviously because it's a buff against Tiamats now, because he's just getting a massive buff here to his damage, his counter rate, and yeah, his defense down, which is insane. Next up, Khloros is getting buffed. So I think this is a great change too because there's not a lot of good fire DPS in the game, the red DPS. So he's just getting straight up buffed for his Doom toll. So, you know, great change. Nothing really much to say. They're just buffing his damage. I think it'll make him a lot better in Terramaton and also Aurora, which he's already good in. And he'll probably be able to be used in Sharon now. If you're missing Lily, he's probably a lot better. Previously, if you didn't have Lily or Doki Doki, you had to run Khloros and Dieting together. And it was kind of sketchy because you needed really good gear. But with this buff, it's probably a lot more manageable. And I assume he'll be okay for Rengokutsu now, because even before, some people were using him in their teams. And then next we have Rahu getting buffed. So honestly, I'm not sure why Rahu's getting buffed again. He's already in a fine spot. I think he's like pretty balanced, to be honest. But this is going to make him go from balanced to like very strong. He's just going to do way more damage, has a higher chance of defense down, which is like very scary. and yeah, it just does more damage now. And his damage was already okay. He was probably the weakest of the 3 meta bruisers in Tiamat, Holden, and himself, but this will definitely make him a very powerful bruiser. I think after these changes, it's probably going to be Holden as the best bruiser, then maybe Rahu, and then probably like Tiamat tied with Rahu now. So very interesting buff. Don't think it was needed, but you know, if you have Rahu and you have him built, good for you. And now we have Rilmocha buffs. So I think this is because a lot of people picked Rilmocha from targeted banner for Doki Doki. And she was already very good for Doki Doki, even outside of one-shot comps. But with this buff, she'll be a lot better. Her S2 is doing a lot more damage now with this buff on the final damage for, you know, the lost HP. And her S3 will just do baseline more damage, 10% more damage than it already does. So this will make it so that the gear requirements for one-shotting Doki Doki will be lower. So it'll make it so that she's even better now in Doki Doki, and it will make Doki Doki easier for people that have her. Previously, I think for Inferno Doki Doki, Rilmocha was the hardest to get going because if you didn't one-shot the first wave, she kind of was like whatever. But now after these buffs, it's a lot easier to one-shot the first wave, so she might even be on the same level of Giada in terms of, you know, just entry-level Inferno teams. And even if you don't one-shot the first wave now, you do a lot more damage with your S2, which is going to be great. Fuqiu, the only change is the imprint is changing from effect accuracy to effect resist. Makes sense. Don't know why it was effect accuracy in the first place, but this is great, even though I don't have dupes of her. Oboro is being changed to actually take indirect damage equal to 100% instead of 50% from the bleeding buff, which is insane. Buff is getting, or bleed is getting buffed, not buff is getting bled. Bleed is getting buffed, which is nice. And then we also have Gray getting buffed here. So Gray is like the staple defense down character you use, especially for Doki Doki if you're free to play and you didn't get Khloros from targeted. And they're just buffing his damage, which will make him a lot more usable. So I think like him getting buffed makes sense because he's pretty mediocre in my opinion. But I don't know if this needed to be buffed. I think this is a good buff. The damage is definitely a good buff, to be honest, because you need him to do damage to Doki Doki to clear, because you know you're giving up Khloros' hacking progress and speed down and stuff like that, so you need to compensate by just doing more damage. But Gray's biggest problem is he's like super squishy. I think he needed like a base stat HP defense buff, to be honest, as well, and it would have made him like perfect. But right now, you know, damage buff is all he's getting. It's a lot, to be honest. This damage is a lot. He's getting 40% additional damage, which is crazy. But I think he definitely needed like a tankiness buff, or maybe even a speed buff would have been better for him. Next character getting buffed is Red Chiaki. So this is interesting because she's already pretty decent for Teramaton and Aurora if you are lacking like Lilies, you know, Mias and stuff like that. But basically the thing that's getting changed is her S3 is giving 3 stacks of origami now. This is going to make her very good for Teramaton, especially because you're taking a lot of burst damage, and of course it'll just make her better for Aurora. But Origami Guardian basically makes you take 35% less damage when you get hit, and now you're getting 3 stacks, so that's a 1.5x buff on the stacks, which is crazy good. Definitely happy she's getting love, but I think she just needs more healing on her S1. Her S2 healing is okay, her S3 healing's insanely high, but her S1 healing is pretty mediocre, so alongside this, I really wish that they buffed her S1 healing. It would have made her even better. Next, we have Rin. So I think this is Red Rin, right? So she basically is getting a shield buff, and the cooldown's going down. Honestly, it's okay, but the problem with this defense, like this skill, is that defense buff is already like a buff you get from Cachi the Guard, who's a very good defensive character. And usually the immunity buff and the extra turn on the defense buff is way better than just the shield. So yeah, I don't really think this will make Red Rin even that great, but you know, it's a good buff. Maybe she'll be better. Maybe she'll actually be used in like Teramaton and stuff like that, but we'll have to see, because I'm thinking about it, and in Teramaton, the defense buff and the shield might be insane. So I'll have to test her out on my ult, and I'll let you guys know if she ends up being very good. Next up, we have Tsutomu. I think this is the green eye patch dude. He has higher damage, higher chance to steal buffs, and higher damage on his S3. And he can apply wound and block. So I don't know if this will make him good enough. The only like thing I can see him being used in is in like PvP on a bruiser build, because stealing buffs is pretty strong, and wound and block is pretty insane against bruisers. So if you're playing like bruisers versus bruisers, he might be used more now, because before his damage was literally like a peanut shooter. It literally did like no damage, but not peanut shooter, pea shooter, but now he's gonna actually do damage, I think, right? I don't know if this is enough, but just the extra chance to steal buffs is definitely good enough, I think. And I'll definitely have to see if people use him, and if they do, I'll try to test him out. Marvell's S3. So basically, this is going to pre-nerf Marvell from beta. Before his last, I think his cooldown was 4 turns, but now it got moved to 5. Now it's getting moved back to 4, so he might be used more, but I don't really think he will because he kind of just got phased out in the meta because he was mostly used in Terramaton for PvE, but now Terramaton's almost immune to turn meter pushbacks by like, I think it's like 60%, which is crazy. And in PvP, there's just way better openers now, so I don't know if he'll be used, but you know, interesting that he's getting buffed again. I think he did need to get buffed, so I could see why it happened, but I don't think it'll make him that great even after the buffs. Next we have Mizuki Makoto. So I like using this character a lot. I'll probably make a video showcasing her in the near future, which I plan to do. But her base speed's going up. That's very interesting. I think this makes sense because even on my build for her, I have her on Swift Rush because even though you want to build her on like full defense, counterattack, people just like try to ignore her. So that's probably why they buffed her speed. And then they're buffing her S1 damage from 300 to 360. So that's a 20% buff. I think this is an over buff. I don't think they needed to buff this. She's already good. Like as a Tiamat counter, she's already very good. But this is going to make her even better. So like what I'm looking at from these patch notes, like with Mizuki getting buffed, Rahu getting buffed, and Holden getting buffed, and Tiamat untouched, basically I think that Tiamat is dead. So there's that. But this is a great buff for her. She's already strong. I don't think she needed one, but sure, we'll take those. So if you're looking for a good free-to-play option, that's probably why actually, now that I think about it, probably because she's a SR bruiser. So if people are trying to get into PvP and need a bruiser and they don't have like the meta ones, Mizuki Makoto is probably going to be your best bet now. Actually, she definitely is because before she was already very good. Now she's going to be like almost borderline like insane. Sybil getting buffed. It's just her single target damage. Yeah, this is mostly for PvE, right? She's not really used in PvP. But if you're using her for Aurora, she's going to be even better now. So definitely probably the best free-to-play DPS for Aurora. But outside of that, nothing really too crazy. Researcher number 41. So she got nerfed from the beta, and now they're rebuffing her, which is interesting. Turn meter push is going up. This is going to make her viable in PvP. Her base speed is still low, but this turn meter push is very good. It's similar to Chiaki the Echo, but I don't know if she'll be like picked a lot, but it'll make her viable for sure for early game players who are cleaving. Next we have Red Cachi getting buffed. The AoE stun chance is going up. Yeah, so they're buffing like a control character. If you're playing control and you need a free-to-play option, Red Cachi might be good for you because he has a stun and a turn meter pushback, which is an insane combo, to be honest. You stun them and push them back, so I think you'll definitely see play in control now because the 35% chance was too low to use, but now it's 50%, and you push back turn meter by 50% as well. So you have like 2 rolls, right? You only need one of these to land for it to be good, but if you land both, it's like pretty much GG's. So I think Red Cachi is going to be very good now, actually. Low key. So I'm very excited to see that change. Next, there's other changes. So everyone was saying Revelation will get nerfed. Only for PvP, guys. It's getting nerfed in PvP by 30%. PvE untouched. So yeah. This is going to be a huge change for PvP. I think Revelation meta is pretty much dead now. It was already like falling off because of Bloodbath, which is like super OP. But with this change, you can't really Revelation cleave anymore. And I think they did this because a lot of supports like Freya were using it. So yeah. I think a lot of people might be upset from this if they're cleavers, but I think for the health of the game, it makes sense because Revelation in PvP is just crazy, especially in lower ranks, which is what this is targeting. But definitely in the upper ranks, like it doesn't really make sense because once you get enough like gear and shells leveled, you don't really die to Revelation anymore, but now it's completely dead for higher ranks, so I probably wouldn't invest into Revelation cleaving anymore. I would probably just invest into, you know, standard playstyles, which is what I think they want to go for. They don't really want this like Revelation support meta, so very huge change. Yeah, this happened. Another one is Golden Lion is getting buffed, so the final damage and effect accuracy is going up by almost double, but the max stacks is going down. So this can accumulate stacks faster. I think this is a great change. This shell isn't bad. It just takes forever to ramp up. So after this, it might be even viable in like PvP on some characters, on like counter characters especially. So definitely we'll have to test it out. On Fangus, if you're using it on him in PvE as like a solo DPS, it'll be very good now. So I think this is a great change for Golden Lion. I think them not touching other shells makes sense, maybe, because I think it's pretty balanced besides like Revelation. The only one I think they should have maybe nerfed is like Lighthouse, because it completely shuts down cleave. But overall, the biggest thing to take away is just Revelation gets nerfed for PvP. Another thing is that shell skills will no longer be considered skill 1. Any effects that target or interact with skill 1 will no longer apply to shell skills. So I think this is going to mean that if you have Time Weave and you have Artisan, basically if your Time Weave procs, since it reduces all your cooldowns, it would make Artisan activate at the start of battle. So if you're in Guild Wars and you see that like people's Artisan shell is activating turn 1, which is something my Union experienced and didn't know why until we figured it out. Basically, it's because Time Weave was proccing on their first turn, and then the Artisan would activate after. So that's not going to happen anymore, so that's like a big one. I'm pretty sure there's other ones as well, but Artisan with Time Weave is like the thing that's mainly being targeted by this. And the last one, Kenai can no longer be triggered by damage from shells. This is going to be basically from like Revelation and White Fang from Dieting, so basically Kenai is worse on Dieting now, which now that I think about it. But it doesn't really matter because Kenai is mostly... for like shell damage, it doesn't really matter too much, and Momentum's like the best PvE module matrix set anyways, so not that big of a deal. But yeah, that's pretty much the patch notes, guys. I kind of went through it quickly, but a lot of buffs that didn't need to happen. They didn't nerf anything, so I'm just curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you guys next video.